The most influential element in the world is not the leader of a nation, nor a political party, but an unassuming black substance with properties unlike any other. Oil has come to dominate many of today's complex geopolitical affairs and is arguably the most influential factor in driving U.S. foreign policy. Yet how did oil, a substance composed largely of the remains of dead organisms, come to play such a pivotal role in defining the United States political culture? We aim to answer these questions and more regarding oil by first looking at its early uses and adoption as a lubricant, as well as in various medicinal and construction applications. We will then look at oil's transition to a widely used fuel for lighting via the invention of kerosene and the resulting birth of the petroleum industry. Finally, we analyze how the development of the gasoline-powered internal combustion engine transformed oil into the main input of our modern transportation system and the American economy, giving oil its meaning in today's modern American culture. The early American uses for oil did not revolve around its use as a fuel for producing energy. Early records show Native Americans near Sacramento, California used the hardened form of oil, asphalt, to help mend cracks in their homes as well as to reinforce their weapons. The Seneca Indians in Pennsylvania first discovered the liquid oil in oil seeps that oozed thick black crude into water streams. They would skim oil from these seeps and use it as a purge or tonic for their bodies, or as salves or ointments to treat their skin for burns and cuts. Native Americans would then later go on to introduce oil to the American colonists by teaching George Washington's troops in Valley Forge on how to treat frostbite using oil. Oil's medicinal use soon took off amongst the American colonists, who also then found it could be used as a very useful lubricant for their wagons. Despite such uses, an oil found by American explorers was often met with disinterest or even dismay. Many settlers dug wells to find brine, a source for salt, and were disappointed when they struck oil instead. As a commodity, oil had little important meaning in America beyond its various minor applications.
The discovery of kerosene, which came about via distilling crude oil, changed the perception of oil in America. Traditionally in America, oil is usually burned in lamps to provide light. However, increased whale hunting had driven whale populations to all-time lows, increasing scarcity of whale oil and driving up prices. In 1846, a Canadian geologist named Abraham Geisler developed a process to refine cheaper and cleaner fuel, kerosene. The demand for kerosene quickly grew and outstripped the traditional supply of oil. Oil's meaning and culture began to transform from a minor commodity to a necessary item for providing light. In response to the demand, in 1859, a few wealthy businessmen purchased land near Titusville, Pennsylvania, and hired Edwin L. Drake to locate oil there. They struck oil at a depth of 70 feet, which touched off the birth of the commercial petroleum industry. Various corporations began setting up operations to discover and refine oil into kerosene, the most notable being Standard Oil by John D. Rockefeller. However, towards the late 1870s, Thomas Edison invented the incandescent light bulb, which would come to render the kerosene lamp obsolete and subsequently caused the oil industry to enter a recession. This caused oil once again to fade in terms of importance, and it lost its meaning as a purveyor of light in American culture. Interestingly enough, gasoline, a byproduct of the refining of crude oil to make kerosene, was by and large considered a useless byproduct that was usually discarded. However, this was about to change.
The invention of the gasoline-powered internal combustion engine in the 1880s was the true catalyst for revolutionizing transportation and firmly establishing oil's meaning in American culture. By 1900, a gasoline-driven internal combustion engine had a weight-to-power ratio of 9, compared to other engines whose ratios could vary from 100 to 150 times more. The weight-to-power ratio enabled the engine to drive cars, aircraft, and other vehicles. Motor vehicles powered by the internal combustion engine, with the help of Henry Ford, quickly began to replace railways as the means for common transport. U.S. demand for gasoline, and hence crude oil, then skyrocketed from less than 3 billion gallons in 1919 to approximately 15 gallons in 1929. The U.S. domestic commercial oil industry exploded with growth to meet such demand. With the discovery of vast new oil reserves in Texas, such as the Spindletop oil strike, nearly 1,500 oil companies were chartered within a year alone. The constant flow of oil without supply shocks enabled gasoline-powered motor vehicles to quickly surpass all other transportation methods. In the post-World War II economic boom, gasoline demand rose further to 46.5 billion gallons, and by 1973, transportation was responsible for more than half of the U.S.'s petroleum consumption. However, U.S. demand for oil had increased so drastically that by 1975, the domestic U.S. oil industry could no longer meet such demand, and the U.S. became a net importer of oil for the first time. However, U.S. demand for oil was still undeterred and consumption continued upwards. Today, we consume nearly 136 billion gallons of gasoline, and 90% of our gasoline consumption is for transportation. By entrenching itself so firmly in our transportation infrastructure, oil has become the lifeblood of the economy. It has come to play such a pivotal part in American culture because it affects even the common man who may be forced to wait at the gas pump for hours in the case of an oil embargo. Yet it was not always this way. It was the invention of the gasoline-powered internal combustion engine that revolutionized transportation by enabling motor vehicles and aircraft travel on such a massive scale. The internal combustion engine transformed a substance that had been originally used as a medicine, lubricant, and lighting fuel to input so key and pivotal to the American transportation system and economy that a shortage has the ability to bring a day-to-day life in America to a sudden stop.